showcasing local talent, professionals, and everyday people making Salt Lake City what it is today. It's time for another episode of the I Am Salt Lake podcast.
All right, I want to welcome everybody out today to episode 335 of I Am Salt Lake podcast. My name's Chris.
And my name's Chrissy.
Hey, we're recording today out of our awesome podcast studio at Access Co-working Spaces right in the heart of downtown Salt Lake City, right on the corner of 200 West, 200 South. If you get an opportunity, stop on in and check this place out. It is really, really awesome.
And if this is your first time listening to this podcast and you're wondering, why am I here? What is this? It's a podcast about showcasing awesome people in Salt Lake City, like musicians, artists, business owners, restaurateurs, really anyone here who has a great story.
Like today on the podcast, we get to sit down and have an awesome conversation with a local pet psychic, Patty Rayman.
Yeah. Have you ever met a pet psychic before, Chris?
Never.
Me neither. This was the first time, and it was actually great. And we got to find out about her story. She even shared some interesting things about Charles, our sphynx cat. She did a reading on him during the interview. It was fascinating.
What she said kind of blew me out of the water, Chrissy.
You know, it did to me too. And I think the amazing thing is I totally it kind of melted when she told us a few things about him.
Hey, but before we jump into this interview, let's give some quick love to our sponsors for this episode, Five Wives Vodka, Market Source Real Estate, and Blip Billboards. We're going to be telling you more about them a little bit later on in the podcast. Also, we got to mention Farmers Market for a little bit. If you have never had a chance to visit the downtown Salt Lake City's Farmers Market, do yourself a favor, go check them out. It is happening every Saturday, all the way until October 20th, every Saturday from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. at Pioneer Park, right downtown. Tons of local artisans that are making some of the most amazing things, local farmers selling some of the best produce that you're ever going to be able to taste. And we're actually going to be there a handful of Saturdays. We were there this last Saturday, and then we're going to be there again June 30th. Mm-hmm. And then I know in August, September, October. So make sure you're connected with us on social media. That way you can know when we're there.
And I promise, if you mention it, I will give you a free high five. So let's cut the chit chat. Let's get down to this conversation we had with pet psychic Patty Rayman when she joined us in our podcast studio and shared her story. Enjoy.
Did you grow up here in Utah? Where's home for you, Patty?
Colorado originally, and I've lived in most of the square states geographically and politically. So a lot of mountain states, Colorado, New Mexico, Wyoming, Arizona, Utah, and Idaho, and then I moved back to Utah.
What kept you coming back to Utah then?
I had a real love-hate relationship with it for a while.
With Utah, yeah. as we all do.
And it took me a while to sort that out and realize that it's actually got a lot of great things going for it that other places don't.
I don't know. I guess we can jump right into, we're obviously here to talk. We got so many questions with the whole pet psychic things.
I want to know, do you have pets?
I have one very strange cat, and everybody wants me to have like a house full. And she had distemper as a baby. Her name is Monster. I talk about Monster a lot in the book. And Monster is a savage biter. The first night I had her, she bit me in the face while I was asleep. She bit a vet tech so badly, the poor woman had to go to Instacare, and they thought they were going to have to do surgery on her hand because Monster bit a tendon.
Wow.
Oh, my gosh.
So, she's an only. She doesn't like other people. She doesn't like other animals. I love her. She makes me laugh every day. She's actually a really good cat. And I have really good platelets, so I can heal up from flesh wounds. It's not that hard.
Can I actually see the book there really quick, Chrissy?
Here you go.
Unfortunately, I haven't had an opportunity to read the book yet, but I wanted to just take a peek at it here, Patty. Now where should we start? We pets. When did the very first time do you remember talking to an animal?
I was born with this ability. And
like right off that, you popped out and you're talking to animals.
I was probably 10 before I realized that other people didn't do it. I thought you just talked to animals in pictures and you talked to people in words.
Sure.
And it's the same thing. And I did it as a kid and I did it growing up. And we as a society are really good at kind of squashing children's dreams and their imagination. So people didn't tell me, oh, it's just your imagination. So I just kept doing it.
Your first memories then were talking to your own cats or dogs, neighbors' cats and dogs?
Yeah, we always had a house full. My parents loved animals. We always had dogs and cats. And I remember being like in second grade and having animals follow me home from school.
Mm-hmm.
Really?
I was going to actually ask that. You remind me of my daughter who is she'll be 10 soon. And she will go outside and I will find her laying down on the ground with a stray cat, just petting it.
Yeah.
And she can subdue any animal and hang out with it, It's so crazy.
Yeah, or, birds or snakes or bugs or whatever. And they're all my friends and I just hung out with them.
What is the difference between a pet psychic, pet whisperer, and even today, somebody said, well, is she a pet medium or a pet psychic? I'm like, I think she goes by Patty the Psychic.
Yeah, because it's got good alliteration. That's the main reason. So pet psychic, pet whisperer, animal communicator, they're all basically the same thing. And I understand animals' stories and I'm able to ask them questions and express their owner's desires to them.
Sure. And when did you decide, sorry, I'm jumping all over the place. I'm jumping in all the questions here, Chrissy. When did you decide, hey, I want to make this a profession?
I started doing this for friends at parties.
It's a perfect party trick.
Yeah. It is a perfect party trick. And it was fun. And they'd ask me questions and they'd show me pictures of their dog and I'd be like, blah, 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 blah. And then it got bigger and it really became obvious that there was a need for it. And I love what I do. It's my absolute passion. It's the meaning of my life is to help people and their animals develop better relationships.
What is it that you love? So the better relationships, I guess you kind of answered it there. I was going to say, what is it about it that you love the most?
Well, people don't call me when their animal's happy and healthy.
Right.
So they call me when they have a problem that they can't solve. And I'm, in a lot of ways, the animal's voice. And I help the people and the animals negotiate a compromise. Sometimes they're like, I need to take this dog to the shelter because he's got a barking problem that I can't solve. It's driving me crazy. My neighbors are complaining. Can you help me?
And do you help them?
Yeah.
I actually thought about showing you a picture of a dog that we had at one point that we had to have someone else take.
Oh, this dog was the devil.
It was the devil. It was, and I'm like, man, I wish I kind of knew that there were people out there who could kind of let us know maybe what she needs. Maybe she needed a job.
Yeah.
She needed a chore. I don't know.
What is it? I mean, what do you solve? Like if say there's a dog that's just nuts.
Like biting children, humping everybody.
Yeah.
Like seriously.
Animals need a lot of basic things, food, exercise, love. They need some rules. They need to have clear expectations.
Isn't that normal though with most pets? Don't most pets need that?
Yeah, and most people don't give their animals that.
Yeah.
It's usually a people problem. Every once in a while, I find an animal that has something wrong with them. I worked with a dog once that was beaten so badly she had brain damage. Some of the stories aren't happy stories.
She was beaten by the owners?
No, by the people that had her before. And it was something like, from what the pictures she was showing me, somebody came in the house and was threatening the adults in the house. And then, and it could have been somebody like collecting a debt or, hey, you parked in my driveway, whatever. And it was a heated discussion. And then this person moved over towards the kids that were in the room. The dog got in front of him and the dog got beaten.
Wow.
And it's like, once you understand that, it gives you a place to go with the relationship. It's like the dog's not just nuts. I have met a few that are. I've met a few that have a screw loose. Most just of them aren't. Yeah, most of them aren't. Mm-hmm. And people ask me, it's like, well, do you do people? And I can connect with people on a psychic level, but I choose not to because people like to stay stuck in their stuff. And you can give them a perfectly good alternative and they'll deny it. They'll stay in their suffering.
Yeah, they're very comfortable in whatever situation they're in.
Animals want to be happy and healthy. They don't lie to you. They always, if you tell them the truth, they respond to that and they appreciate it. You tell that to people and sometimes they don't.
Let's back up a little bit. You said you always remember talking to animals.
Yeah.
What did your parents think? Do you have other family members?
I do.
Siblings?
Sometimes psychic ability does run in families.
Yeah. I was just wondering what they thought. Did they think you were crazy?
They didn't ask.
Okay. Well,
my parents worked
maybe you told them
too much and had very stressful jobs, and they were fairly happy that I was self-sufficient and I wasn't getting into trouble.
Were you an only child?
I have a brother.
Okay.
But, he was the problem. I wasn't. So they're just like, yeah, whatever.
You flew under the radar.
Go hang out with the dog and cat. We're fine with that.
Yeah.
So they never really asked and they never really criticized it. So I just kept doing it.
I didn't know, because it would seem like if you don't do it right as a kid, you can get thrown in the mental institution or something like, oh, she thinks she talks to animals. I don't know.
Kids have
Back in the
imaginations.
Early 1900s, I'm sure that would have gotten you thrown.
Actually not. I think, 100 years ago, 150 years ago, you relied on animals for your livelihood.
Sure.
Yeah.
You called your dog, you saddled your horse, you went out and herd your cattle. And people like me were valuable because we had those skills.
I wonder, I actually am curious to look up the history of this because I know it's probably within the last 50 years or so that people have started to accept that animals actually have feelings and thoughts.
Yeah.
Previously, it was like, no, they're just things,
Well, and everybody who has an animal knows that's not true.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know. Some people treat their animals like
some
garbage.
people are awful.
Some people treat them like objects, and that causes a lot of problems.
Gosh, treat them with some respect.
Right.
Feed them. Take care of them.
Yeah.
Give them a hug.
Or these
Animals
people that
like
make
hugs.
their cats and dogs sleep outside in the middle of winter. You're like, come on, they want to come inside. So on that note, how do you handle skeptics? People, I'm sure you get people all the time that say you're nuts.
Yeah.
Or you're making it up.
Well, people are like, yeah, you're a pet psychic. I don't believe in pet psychics. And I'm like, well, your dog does. Give me.
It's like your mom joke. Well,
give me 10 minutes with your dog and see what I can do. And if it doesn't fit into your worldview that there are psychics and there are people that have more than 5 senses, that's fine.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. I live in a pretty interesting universe where a lot of things are possible.
What made you decide to go with the term pet psychic as opposed to pet whisperer? I mean, professionally, do you think people respond differently to it?
Patty pet psychic?
Yeah, I know. It's really cute. I love the alliteration.
I don't know. It just seemed you can get stuck in a lot of words describing what you do. And that was the simplest thing that I did.
Right. I think it's cute.
Should we, listeners, so we reached out to our audience and our listeners of, hey, we're talking to, a pet psychic, Patty pet psychic. So many people were interested in our Sphynx cat, Charles. Could we...
Picture of Charles?
So you need a picture. So how can you... I was listening to, you sent me a link. Gosh, I wish I would remember the exact name of the Utah. You were on another Utah. I can pull it up here because I'll put the link in that as well at iamsaltlake.com. I listened to it the other day.
Oh, the Access Utah program?
Is that what it was? Access Utah.
Yeah, it's an NPR station out of Logan.
And you can go listen to it. Mm-hmm. So I'll put that link at iamsaltlake.com with this episode. And one of the things you said, because people were calling up. Yeah. There were callers wanting you to this or that. And you were like, well, I can't do it without at least seeing a picture.
Right.
So I was like, Chrissy, we have to get a picture of Charles.
And I have so many on Instagram.
Can we? Now, what can you really tell? We rescued Charles.
Okay.
You can't tell us the address of his own former owners, right?
Have you ever been able to kind of assess what kind of life they had previously?
Sure. Yeah, a lot of people are interested in that.
Because we talk about it all the time.
Yeah, it's interesting.
I'm not particularly gifted at finding lost animals. It isn't my best skill.
Sure. Well,
But some people are. Some people can do it really well because I don't see them as an object. I can see what the animal is seeing and what they're experiencing. It's like, are they, in a shelter, or are they in a house, or are they free? But I'm not very good at saying, oh yeah, if you drive 3 blocks south and then turn west, you'll find him.
You're not a map.
I'm not.
Yeah,
I'm
that
not
makes
Google
sense.
Maps.
Show her this picture, Chrissy.
Okay,
Show her
I couldn't figure out which picture,
what picture did you pick?
This is mostly what Charles does all the time. So it's him hugging me. He's always trying to get on our lap.
Is that the best picture? I don't know. Is that can you
Okay, let
tell
me find another
based
picture.
off of, well, I don't know if she
No,
could,
that one's fine.
Okay, if
I don't
she's
know.
fine. Yeah.
He looks angry, but he's also hugging
He's a
and loving.
sphynx.
So,
And
yeah, they look
have
angry all the time.
wrinkles in their head. Let me see here. You are his person.
Yeah,
Me?
Yeah.
Yes, you are. I believe the animals have one person that they're supposed to be with.
Sorry,
when
Chris.
Chrissy and I first started dating, so I adopted Charles about a month before. When Chrissy and I first started dating, I thought he was going to kill her in her sleep. Chrissy,
Well, I took over his side of the bed.
She's graduate. I mean, you were right. Anyway, sorry to cut you off there, but you were right. You're right.
Yeah, and he is a fat cat, and I hate to tell you that. I'm sorry.
Everybody tells us.
It's not a good look for a sphynx.
How can he lose weight?
His liver is a little out of whack. You said he's 11, you think?
Yeah, we think
Probably
he's about 11.
11, 12 maybe now.
Yeah.
Yeah, 11. So it's a good time to get him in to the vet, get some blood work done on him. His liver is not in balance. I can't tell you exactly what's wrong with it, but it's not quite working as well as it should. And that could be because of his body weight. Kidneys are not awesome either, but they're fairly normal for a cat his age. He is, in this picture, he's got some back pain right below your hand, right here.
Interesting.
But he's a really happy cat.
Mm-hmm.
And he is so grateful to be with you. He had, I think you were his third home, not counting, he didn't spend much time in the shelter. He was only there just a day or two.
Very short time.
Yeah, so that didn't even count. He was with somebody for a long time, and they treated him very well. And it was something like they couldn't keep him any longer. Like they loved him, but it seems like it was an older person, and they had to leave their home and could not take him. So they gave him to somebody else who didn't treat him very well. And he rehomed himself. He got out. He said, "I'm done. I'm leaving you."
Well, I'm over here
Which is a
goosebumps.
pretty
I
risky
know.
proposition for a naked cat.
Especially in November,
And
I
probably, is he
Yeah.
declawed?
Yeah, he is. His
yeah.
front claws are declawed, which thank goodness, because their claws grow so fast.
Yeah. And it's just, they'll like casually scratch their ear and they'll just shred themselves.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, he cuts us up so good. I mean, not on purpose, but he wants to snuggle all the time.
Yeah, they're
so
always
he'll climb
cold.
up and his claws will just dig into my arm, and I'm like, it's okay.
And they,
I still love you.
they love fleecy blankets and they love to be held.
Yeah.
And
But what's interesting with Charles, since we've had our baby Lucy, is he's become very protective of her and very loving.
If she's
of her.
crying, he will come in the room and kind of hover over her and lick her head and try to calm her down. It's super cute.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Sphinxes are they're very interesting. To be honest, I love cats, but I don't know if I ever want a different kind of a breed.
Yeah,
of a cat.
They're pretty, people describe them as dog-like, which is kind of an insult to cats. Cats are not like dogs.
Well, that's what attracted me to it, because I at the time I lived in a small apartment, and I didn't want dogs. I was like, I need something that's a little more self-sufficient. Even though Sphinxes, I quickly learned you cannot neglect them.
No.
When we were dating, we couldn't stay out super late or go somewhere overnight because every time we were out for more than a few hours, he's like, I have to get home to Charles. I have to get home to Charles.
You'd be like, who is Charles?
I was like, this guy's insane.
Is he your boyfriend or what? But now, can you tell from a picture what he wants? Like, what is he looking for? Does that make sense?
Well, he found it when he found Chrissy.
Yeah, well, you make
That was
sense.
it.
Yeah, no,
That was what he was looking for.
Your spot. I mean,
I feel so good right now.
I'm not kidding. You are you know that.
No,
Chrissy.
it's true. I can't. Yeah, he really. And I feel guilty though because he was your cat first.
Well, for like a month.
Well,
Yeah.
it's like they go through whatever they need to get to the right people. So he got to you.
Oh, that makes me feel good inside.
So, they can, sometimes they want very specific things. I did a reading for a woman it was mostly for her dog. And the dog had some health issues and we worked those out. And then the cat came in and I said, oh, let's do a reading for the cat. And the cat was pretty chill. He was healthy. He didn't really have a lot going on. And she said, well, what would make him really happy? And he showed me this picture of a box, this huge box with like thousands of mice jumping out of it in the living room. And I'm like, well, what? I don't think your mom's going to go for that.
Right. That's not
that
really
would make
something
like
that
every cat happy.
Yeah. Yeah.
What is the most bizarre animal you've ever had a chance to work with?
A 3-legged toad.
A 3-legged toad.
Where? How did you come across this?
People have interesting pets.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
That's probably very true.
One of the interesting combinations I see is these, women that are, they're well into their career, their kids are grown, maybe they're divorced, they've got a nice house, a nice car, a good profession, and they have a bearded dragon because their son got it when he was 12. And those things live 20 years.
It's still in the house.
And it's still there, and they're
like a cockroach.
still taking care of it. But they, they love it.
Yeah.
But it's like that just doesn't quite match your image.
Right.
Wow.
So yeah, any animal that people love, I've probably worked with it.
I'm curious, does it ever feel like work to you when you go to the zoo or you watch cute animal videos on internet or
I never go to the zoo.
Oh, yeah, that would be depressing.
I never go to the zoo. I never go to rodeos. I don't go to the, circus that uses animals.
Are you pretty involved in the animal rights thing, like vegetarian, vegan?
I am vegetarian as a personal choice because I think it's bad form to eat my clients.
Sure.
I've done plenty of readings on cows and people are like, cows are stupid. And I'll tell you what, cows love their babies.
No, cows are intelligent animals.
Cows are very, very good mothers.
Sure.
What's the difference between a cow and a horse as far as eating them? I don't think you should eat either of them. Personally, I'm vegetarian. I believe all animals have rights, but I don't necessarily believe that letting all the minks out of a fur farm is the right way to approach that.
Approach it. Yeah, absolutely. Let's actually take a quick break. We have to play a message from our sponsors. We have a bunch more questions, though, to ask you, Patty. And then I want to obviously talk about your book, Humans Think, Animals Feel, when we come back. So hang tight. We'll play these messages and chat with Patty some more. All right, it's that time of the podcast where we take a couple minutes of your time and tell you about our awesome sponsors. These are some great businesses that are helping support the podcast. So when you support them, you're supporting us here at the podcast. Hey, this episode of the podcast is sponsored by Blip Billboards. I know you all have seen the big, bright digital billboards on the side of the road when you're going up and down I-15. Well, did you realize how easy it is to get your business up on these billboards? Rather than the typical month-long contract that could cost you thousands of dollars and only have it up on one billboard, Blip actually sells flips, aka a blip, on digital billboards. A blip is anywhere between 7.5 and 10 seconds, depending on the billboard, and one of these blips can go for as little as 1 cent. You can be specific on which board you want to advertise on, local or even nationwide, in the times that you want to advertise. You only pay for the time that you want your message to be up. I Am Salt Lake, we're actually in the process right now of doing a digital billboard campaign, and it is awesome to help get, that brand awareness, to get more people familiar with the podcast, to just get our name out in front of thousands of more people that might have never heard of the podcast before. And this could be, in your case, if you have a local business here in the Salt Lake Valley and you're looking for new ways to advertise, why not get it up on a Blip billboard, blipbillboards.com. It's a great way to get your brand name out there to as many people as you can. It's cheap, customizable, no contract required. You have complete control of your campaign. Again, blipbillboards.com. Head on over to their website, check it out, give it a try. And many thanks again to Blip Billboards for sponsoring this episode of the podcast. Hey, this episode of the podcast is sponsored by Market Source Real Estate.
If you love the charming character of old homes, you need to contact our friends Monique and Jeremy Higginson of Market Source Real Estate.
Hey, so for the past 17 years, they've been specializing in helping people buy and sell homes in Sugar House in the greater Salt Lake City area.
They have a background of flipping houses, and they've owned almost 24 homes themselves, so they know all the ins and outs of older homes.
If you're looking to sell your home, Market Source Real Estate specializes in helping sellers update or repair their homes to increase their value and make sellers more money.
If you're looking to buy an old home, they know exactly what to look for in older homes so you don't end up buying a money pit. You can find their info at thinksaltlakecity.com today or call 801-810-6773.
Again, that website, thinksaltlakecity.com, their phone number 801-810-6773, and many thanks again to Market Source Real Estate for sponsoring this episode of the podcast. All right, this episode of the podcast is also sponsored by Five Wives Vodka. You know, when you're in Texas, you can get away with drinking Tito's, but when you're here in Utah, you better be drinking Five Wives Vodka. So the next time you're at your local bar or at the state liquor store picking up a bottle, make sure to ask for Five Wives Vodka. You know, and there's actually an app. I just remembered to tell this to you guys. There is an app where you can order Five Wives Vodka and get it delivered to your door. Obviously, this is for our out-of-state listeners. It's bfspirits.com. Download that app right there on the website and get Five Wives Vodka delivered directly to your door. And there are 3 flavors of Five Wives Vodka. I love talking about this, Chrissy, on the podcast, just because it makes me so thirsty for some Five Wives Vodka. There's the original one, which is made from the Utah Mountain spring water. It's 100% distilled corn spirit, and it's gluten-free. The spring is hidden up in beautiful Ogden Canyon. It's inaccessible by vehicle, so the water is hiked out 5 gallons at a time. And let me tell you what, Chrissy, this vodka is so smooth. I love it.
Yeah, it is. They have the 2 flavors. They have Five Wives Sinful, which is a flavored vodka with a delicious cinnamon taste. And it's not like other cinnamon products that are sugary and leave a cinnamon candy taste in your mouth. Sinful's like a morning cinnamon roll, and it only has 76 calories per ounce. I obviously talk about Five Wives Vodka a lot with people in my life, and I have noticed recently that so many people are fans of Five Wives Heavenly.
Why is that?
Because apparently it's the best. It's so good. It's a
rich, buttery vanilla flavor. It comes through without coating your taste buds with sugar, and this results in more vanilla and less calories, Chrissy.
And it's a great mixer.
Hey, head on over to their website, fivewivesvodka.com. Pick up a bottle the next time you go to the state liquor store, Five Wives Vodka. Pick up an extra bottle for your buddy when he invites you over to the barbecue to barbecue up some steaks this weekend. And many thanks again to Five Wives Vodka for sponsoring this episode of the podcast. Where should we start now that we're back here? Should we jump right into this book for a second?
Let's
since that's kind of where I left it before the break. So you've written one book.
That's my first book.
This is your first book.
I have many more inside of me, but that's my first one.
Humans Think, Animals Feel, Finding Common Ground Between You and Your Animal Companions, which I'll put, now can you, Amazon, I'm assuming?
It's on Amazon, and it's in 3 local bookstores, and I can give you those too.
What bookstores here locally?
Golden Braid carries it. It's at Sam Weller in Trolley, and Marissa's Books, which is 5692 South 900 East.
Oh, I'll have to go, I haven't been to that one.
Yeah, it's a fun store, and they have a very generous consignment cut if you are a local author. So if you've got a book, take it into Marissa's.
That's good. I mean, because we've had authors on the show that have even had a hard time getting into local places. How long ago did you write this?
I published that in December of last year. So not very long.
Pretty recent. Why did you want to write a book?
Everybody wants to write a book.
Well, sure.
You've made it when you write a book.
I wrote this book to give people the basic tools to build better relationships with their animals. It's like if your animal has a behavior challenge, you can read this book and come up with a way to solve it yourself. It'll help you solve 80% of what you're going to encounter with an animal. And then call me for the other 20% and I'll help you with the hard stuff.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you for listeners, obviously, that are local. Believe it or not, we have a lot of listeners outside of Utah even, but for, let's say, the Salt Lake City, Provo, Ogden, wherever, if they're within, I mean, you can obviously, they can reach out to you directly, right? I mean,
you can go on my website. You can send me a picture. We can do a phone reading. I do home visits. I'm going to be at a lot of local events this summer.
Rattle a few off if you know them off the top of your head.
Pride Festival. I'm going to be in the Made in Utah Festival, which will be that one's August 25th. Salt Lake City does Yappy Hour every month, and I'm going to be going to those. I do readings at Barley's Canine Recreation Center, which is a super fun place that is indoor swimming for dogs.
So, like, let's stop there for a minute. Like, what would you do there at that? You say you do readings there, so people bring their dog.
Yeah, they have a little room that they let people use, and people bring their dogs in, and we sit down and have a conversation about them.
Is that kind of what you're going to be doing at some of the events, too?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
oh, man,
selling books.
Fun.
And talking to people and doing readings.
Because especially, I think I've seen at Pride, a lot of people will bring their pets.
Actually, this year it's no pets at Pride.
Oh.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I thought I read man, that's a lame rule.
That is a lame rule.
There are a lot of people there.
Yeah.
You know,
it's probably overstimulating.
Yeah. And they've had some kind of strange incidents with animals, so they just said no pets.
What advice would you give completely left field to someone like myself? You say everybody wants to write a book, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if I wanted to write a book, what would you tell me? A couple words of advice.
Write.
Just write. I mean,
write it. I am not a good typist, so I dictated my book.
Okay.
Which was great because the book is in my voice. It sounds like me. But I had a ton of editing to do, and I would edit and go back through it and cut it down and cut it down. And this book actually was 400 pages at one point.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
And somebody said, cut it in half, do 2 separate books. It's like 175 now.
That's an interesting challenge because usually authors have to try to figure out how to fill more pages.
If you dictate, it's amazing how much stuff you can produce.
Huh.
Now, what you dictate? Like what? Like record it like on your phone or
voice recognition system on my computer.
Sure.
And it's 60 words a minute, corrects my grammar and my spelling. And I'm like, this is great. That I can just keep going for hours and hours.
That is so awesome. I mean, are these all over in other bookstores, like if outside of Utah, or just Amazon, I guess? If you're
Amazon, I haven't started getting it outside, but I'm looking at getting it in like a bookstore in Ogden, Park City, and then there's a couple others in other states I want to try.
Has anyone ever contacted you to find like a missing pet?
Yeah, and I help them as much as I can. I don't do that as a specialty. It's not my thing. There are human psychics that are actually better at it than I am.
I wonder what would make them better, I guess.
So human psychics can actually help, like, feel pets?
Mm-hmm. Some of them can.
Interesting.
It's not like a package deal. You know, you don't open it up and say, hey, I'm a psychic. I can do all of these things. Everybody has things they're better at and things that just aren't their best skills.
Does anyone ever contact you to maybe reach out to a pet who has passed?
Mm-hmm.
And then have you had success doing that?
Yeah, with the photo.
Okay.
And they usually, almost always, the animals are very, very joyous. Joy is the highest vibration that we can understand. I think there are probably others.
Right.
And they're pure joy, and they're never tired, and they're never hungry, and there are lots of people in heaven that love animals, and they're pretty happy, but they usually want to make a connection with their person and come back to them. A lot of people dream about their animal after they pass.
Yeah.
And, you know, they just kind of want you to know that they're there for you and that they're okay.
Yeah. That begs the question, do all dogs go to heaven? I want to know.
It's a movie.
Because I think one of the dogs that we had is definitely not going to heaven.
I have to believe they do, you know.
Yeah.
I wasn't really raised in a religious tradition, so all I know about heaven is what the animals have showed me, and it looks pretty cool.
Yeah, I dig it. When
we mentioned that we were going to talk with you, I got about 5 different other names of pet sites. They're like, oh, you're going to be talking to this person? No, we're going to talk to Patty. There's quite a few of them here in the area?
Yeah, I was the only one for a long time.
Then they all copied you, right? They all wanted to be you, Patty.
I wish there were, you know, pet psychics as common as massage therapists. You know, I think it's a really valuable service. Animals people love their animals, and animals are our family.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
And I want animals and people to live happily in partnership. That's what I do.
Talk about you did like a radio show once, right?
Yeah,
An
I used to.
online radio show. You used to do it. Talk about that for a minute. How did that happen? Even what did they contact you? Did you contact them?
Yeah, somebody called me out of the blue and said, "Hi, this is Voice America Radio," and I thought it was Voice of America Radio, which it was not. It was a little different. And we set it up, and I think I ran.
But how did they even know to contact you?
I don't know.
That's what
I don't know.
They maybe found one of your cards. I guess?
Something.
Well, you do a really good job putting yourself out there. You have a great online presence. And, I mean, you're kind of...
It's getting
if
more.
People look you
I'm
up,
growing,
it's very easy to find you.
I'm growing that. And
Yeah.
I can see her doing good with a YouTube channel.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like video
Totally.
or
Yeah.
something. I don't know. I mean, nowadays it's so easy to put your own thing together,
Mm-hmm.
a podcast or something. So the radio, how long did you do that for?
I think I did it for 5 months.
5 months, so a while.
Yeah.
I mean, you enjoyed it.
Every week, it was a lot of work, and I appreciate the work that you guys do to put this out. There's a lot that goes on behind getting an hour of
Content.
good content
Yeah,
out.
sure. What didn't you like about it?
I didn't have a lot of control over who my callers were, and some of them were just really random, and it's like, follow the steps, give me the information I need, send me the picture, we'll set this up. And they would just kind of like call out of the blue without a picture, and that was kind of strange.
So was that mostly what it was, a call-in show?
It was a call-in show for the most part.
And people are notoriously difficult. So I can imagine that would be pretty challenging.
People are like, well, I can describe my cat exactly to you. And it's like, well, she's fat and black and has like 5 white hairs on her chest. And I'm like, there might be 500 cats in a mile of your radius that fit that description.
And I would assume a lot of your readings are based on kind of even facial features or the look in their... I mean, I don't know. I would assume
Well, actually, most of it is the energy. That I'm moving energy through them. I don't do a lot of... body language, unless it's something like, I'm watching the dog and he's got a limp and I'm like, well, it's obviously your left foot is hurting. Let's talk about that.
Right.
So most of it is energetic.
Interesting.
Wow. I think this is great. I mean, I didn't even know there was such a thing as pet psychics.
Yeah.
When you're not dealing with like animals, when you're not a pet psychic, what do? I mean, do you have any other hobbies and interests?
That is pretty much my hobbies and interests. I am a voracious reader.
Okay, so you read a lot?
I read a lot, and I read a lot of different genres, and I do want to write a couple more books, and I want to write the sequel to this one and a mystery novel involving a cat. And I'm like, where did this come from? So I've been reading tons of mysteries lately.
When do you see like the sequel to this Humans Think Animals Feel book?
In a year or two.
Okay, so not 3 months or...
Yeah.
Now, what about Audible? You should get this on Audible, right?
Maybe.
Like an audio book. I know Chrissy
I'd be
prefers
down.
to consume her books that way.
Well, time.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can be doing something else.
Exactly. Yep. Multitask.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
I'm
I thought you were
sorry.
going to ask something
I was just reading. If you could learn one random skill that you don't have, what would it be?
How random.
The most random you could possibly think of.
I think oil painting would be pretty random.
Do you paint at all right now?
No.
Not at all?
Nothing.
Draw?
No.
Nothing?
No.
Oil? Well, you should start, and then you could do your own.
There's Bob Ross. Great way to start oil painting, right? Just beat the devil out of it.
Yeah.
Who would you most like to be stuck in an elevator with? I know these are kind of throwing out there questions.
I would like to be stuck in an elevator with the head of a major pet food manufacturing company, because he probably wouldn't walk out of that elevator alive.
Really? Why is that?
I think most pet food is a scam.
What would you feed an animal? Like, what would you feed? Like, what is a good cat food? I guess since we have Charles,
It
right?
depends on your cat.
Yeah.
And cats, by definition, are fur-bearing carnivores. So Charles doesn't even make that definition. So they should eat meat. And that being said, my cat, who's a little strange anyway, has an intestinal problem, and she's on a food that is 100% soy, has no meat in it. Goes against everything I believe in, but it works for her.
Now,
And
who recommended that? Your vet or yourself?
the vet and I kind of work that out.
Okay.
So I do a lot of like muscle testing for animals to help see if they're on the right diet. So, I can go through and say, well, they're not good on chicken, but they're good on beef and lamb. Or, they can't eat corn, but they're okay on rice.
I've heard of some animals that are actually allergic to different types of meat, and people will have to get like kangaroo.
Yeah, there's some
Kangaroo to feed your cat?
I have heard of it.
You can get kangaroo. You can get goat is a current one. Goat meat in dog and cat food. Rabbit, venison.
But who are we kidding? Most people don't really want to go that above and beyond to feed their pets.
Yeah.
Well, if you had a cat that, Charles is 11, how long would you like Charles to live?
I mean, well, obviously,
Forever.
I
want to
most people
clone him.
want their animals to live forever, but then it gets difficult because it's like, well, as much as we want our animal to live forever, who are we kidding? We know it's not going to,
right?
And so, at what point do you just say, hey, I can't do it? I mean, especially money, right?
Yeah,
we keep dumping money. Money. Not us personally, but people.
My old cat taught me how to do this. He was my mentor. He taught me how to actually ask animals questions, and he lived to be 20.
Okay.
Wow.
So he had intestinal lymphoma at 18 and a half. We went through a full course of chemo, and he made it another year and a half.
I had a friend in Pennsylvania. She had a pet rat, and this pet rat developed a tumor. And I remember she took it to the vet, and it was close to $300 to get this tumor taken off of this rat. And nobody at the vet office understood why she would spend this much money on her pet rat when you can just go to the pet store and get another one for probably under $5.
Yeah.
But I mean, we become attached to our pets.
Oh, we love them.
Yeah.
They are our family. And a lot of people, they don't have kids, or their kids are grown, or they live by themselves, and that is their family.
Yeah, they become pet parents.
Yeah.
That's a big thing.
As we kind of wind this down, there's some bunch of questions. Obviously, I like to find out more about you. I mean, obviously, with the pet psychic and you as a person and who you are, Patty. I'm trying to connect Salt Lake City to you, Patty.
Yeah.
What is the most memorable concert or sporting event that you have ever been to?
Oh, the most memorable sporting event was not in Salt Lake.
Well, where?
It was in Perth, Australia.
No kidding.
Yeah.
What were you doing in Australia, Patty?
I had recently gotten divorced. I had a passport, and I had a good money from the settlement, and I'm like, see ya, I'm gone. I'm going to Australia for a while.
Are you saying that there's good money hanging out there that I can go about?
I guess that's
you were
fair
smart.
point.
When I got divorced about over 5 years ago, and that was like, should I go on a cruise? Should I go to Africa or something? I didn't do it.
Oh, yeah. And I went to Australia, and I went to a cricket game. It was like a big deal. It was like, it would have been kind of like the Super Bowl.
Sure.
As far as the level. And it was amazing, and I never understood any of it. I have no idea what cricket's about. But most of the people in the stadiums got there at 8 o'clock in the morning and had been drinking heavily in 110-degree weather.
Yeah.
So it was quite an entertaining event.
Now, did you go to Australia by yourself?
Yeah.
Wow. Props to you, Patty.
It's the way to do it, man.
It was fun.
Did you visit any? I know kangaroos are like the rats of Australia,
Are
right?
they?
Yeah.
But
They're
did you
all
ever?
over.
Did you see any,
Oh, yeah.
or even try to communicate with any of them?
They're not rocket scientists. Animals, dogs and cats are very intelligent, and there are, some of them aren't the brightest bulb on the Christmas tree, but kangaroos they're pretty dumb. And
They're
they have,
extra
Are
stupid.
they really that dumb? I mean, cartoons
I don't
make
know.
them look funny.
Well, I like the one with boxing gloves
Yeah.
from Looney Tunes.
Did you see any with boxing?
no, none with boxing gloves.
Let's talk a little bit about Salt Lake City, right? Obviously, Salt Lake City podcast. We have some Salt Lake City questions we ask on here. But if somebody was visiting Salt Lake City this upcoming weekend, there's got to be one or two things you would say, go check this out, guys. Whether it's the mountains, a hike, a building.
I love downtown.
Okay.
I think downtown's awesome. I would take them up to Snowbird and go to the spa, because that is as good as it gets, and probably the Natural History Museum.
I think that's the second time we've heard go to the Snowbird Spa.
I think
It's one of the top 10 spas in the country, and
That makes sense.
it's on the 9th floor of the Cliff Lodge, surrounded by the most awesome mountains in the United States.
Chrissy, can we go there? Can we?
Yeah,
go
we
there?
just had an anniversary. Can we do like a late anniversary thing?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. Hey, if you could change one or two things about the area, Salt Lake City or the Valley, what would you change?
Air
Patty?
quality.
Air quality.
First off, when it's bad, it really, really affects animals.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Do you think even worse than humans?
oh yeah.
Really?
They're tiny. And, you know, I mean, if you think Charles, he's got tiny little lungs, he's 6 inches off the ground.
And all that
Yeah.
fat.
And a lot of them are
pushing his
bred so
lungs.
extremely that they have health conditions
Yeah,
even
like-
without.
You know, dogs that
Bad
have
air.
smushy faces, they
Yeah.
don't breathe real well anyway, and the bad air really gets to them.
Yeah.
So what can you do in this for animals? I know this is another side tangent now, but I guess keep them indoors with, hopefully you have an air purifier in the house or something? Or?
Yeah, you know, be really mindful about how much you're exercising them when the air is bad. If you think it's something more than that, get them to the vet. Don't hesitate, you know, because it could be they get pneumonia or something.
Sure. Mm-hmm. Favorite local eating spots? Do you have any like places? I know you're kind of a little bit further south out
Yeah.
of downtown, but I mean, I'm sure you have one or two places that
I
you
am
like.
vegetarian, so
Favorite local vegetarian place?
oh, Cafe Trang.
Great. Yeah.
Cafe Trang, Tres Hombres is like my go-to Mexican. I love Eva downtown.
Have you been to Bud's? I've heard they have great. I've never been there, but everybody I know, it's like vegan sandwiches.
I haven't been to there.
And whatnot. I've never been there either. I was just curious. So back to the book. People can get it. Mention the places that people can get the book at locally. I know you mentioned it. You said
Golden Braid,
Golden Braid.
Sam Weller and Trolley, Sam Weller Bookworks in Trolley Square, which is an awesome bookstore, and Marissa's bookstore, which is 5692 South 900 East.
And I'll put those links at imsaltlake.com as well with this episode. And then obviously an Amazon link, they can get it. But obviously support local if you can.
Yeah, absolutely.
Local bookstores are an endangered species.
They really are.
And they're fun. I mean, Sam Weller and Marissa's sell used and new books, and they're mixed together on the shelf. So you
Oh,
can
really?
Yeah,
That
so
is
you can
kinda
get
cool.
something that's, you know, brand new or something that's 30 years old.
Oh man.
What is something like, let's give a little bit of I don't know, is this kind of going to be a complete, I'm just totally winging this one, Patty, but like something that listeners can do right away to try to understand their pets a little bit better, a little communication.
So I have a list of 5 minutes to a happy, healthy pet. Number 1 is get your pet microchipped. Mm-hmm. Because 1 in 3 animals get lost in their lifetime, and microchips are how they get home. Spend 5 minutes every day, one-on-one with each of your pets. So
If you have 5 pets, then
5 pets, that's 25 minutes out of your day. So just you and one animal connecting. Scoop your cat's litter box every day.
Well, with the sphynx, we have to do it right away. I don't know if you're familiar.
every time.
I don't know
Yeah.
if you're familiar with that. Whew, they stink.
Get a litter maid.
Yeah.
Get an automated litter box scooper. They're pretty awesome. Think about how much exercise you can really give a pet. You know, if you have a dog like a pointer or a lab or a husky, they need exercise. If they don't get enough exercise, they're going to give you a boatload of behavior problems.
Yeah, or
A
they'll
tired
tear your
dog
house
is
apart.
tired dog is a happy dog.
Yeah.
So make sure they get enough exercise. And, you know, show real emotion with your animal. That's important. If they break the rules, it's not no bad dog. I talk a lot about this in the book. How to really direct emotion so it's effective.
Awesome. And I mean, this book looks like a great read. It looks like it could benefit really any
relationship. It works.
relationship
A
with
lot
your
of my
animal.
friends are like, yeah, I applied this with my coworkers and it worked great.
Do you
Hey,
have
people are animals too.
They are.
Do you have like a dream animal, a fantasy pet, right? Like growing up, I remember I wanted a monkey.
I wanted 2 lion cubs when I was a little kid.
And I always wanted a Black Panther. Let's get all of our pets.
Okay, actually, you know, speaking of that, so somebody mentioned you're in a Lion Cub movies or something. Is that true, or am I completely? Or they must be thinking about a different pet psychic.
something else.
Yeah, They're like, ask her what her favorite wolf or lion cub movie is. I'm like, what?
Don't like movies that have talking animals in them for the most part.
What about Animal Planet? I actually listened to a documentary about documentaries saying that a lot of the
Documentary.
yeah. that a lot of that is staged.
Yeah.
And it actually sounds terrible.
My whole thing is respect for animals for who they are.
Yeah.
And they don't have to entertain us. They're
Right.
beautiful and interesting by themselves and because of themselves.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they do some crazy stuff. And if you happen to catch that on video, great. But yeah, they shouldn't be coerced and they shouldn't be made to do things that are not.
Yeah. Well, like, and I know I'm just bringing up random stuff, but you know, like the classic lemmings that they run off a cliff?
Sure.
Yeah.
That's actually a complete farce. It was made up by a director who actually shipped a bunch of lemmings to a place by a cliff, put them on a little circular thing, and then spun it until they were pointing towards the cliff and scared them, so they ran off.
Huh. That's animal abuse. No.
What about,
Yeah,
what
I
about
mean,
the
like-
crocodile hunter? Steve Irwin, the
Steve
crocodile.
Irwin.
Was
He always bothered me because
Did he?
he would
Really?
He'd get, you know, there's a snake and it's just doing snake stuff in snake world. And it's
Yeah.
not like you could just sit there and watch the snake and appreciate what it's doing and learn from the snake. No, he has to go and grab it. And, you know, the
He's
things,
pretty aggressive
the
with
things,
them. Yeah.
you know, fighting and hissing. And he's like, yeah, look at this snake. And I'm like, well, just leave the snake alone and let him be.
Yeah. Can you read snakes?
Yeah, only if they're
really?
warm.
What?
Huh.
If they're cold, it's like talking to a rock. There's nothing going on. But if they're warmed up,
What would a snake even say, Patty?
they don't have a whole lot to say, but they do have preferences just like dogs and cats. Some of them like to be touched, some of them don't. Some of them like to be fed like small mice, and some of them like large mice. Some of them like individual people, and some of them don't. And they know when they live in a house where somebody doesn't like them. They can pick up on that energy.
Now, have we asked her, Chrissy, is there an animal you just won't deal with? Like you're just like, nope, no way. I'm not going to deal with that.
Kangaroos.
Kangaroo or giraffe. Or
I think
don't
a
know,
giraffe would be really cool.
Panda bear. I don't know. I just wondered if there was an animal you
Not
just won't
really.
touch. You're
Not
just
really.
like, I don't want to deal with that one.
You know, I think it'd be really cool to talk to an octopus.
Sure.
I think that would be like,
Is that possible? I don't know.
they're very
Well,
intelligent.
you'd have to go to an aquarium.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or really get comfortable in the ocean.
diving a lot. Yeah, they're really intelligent. I work with mostly dogs, cats, and horses, and I have worked with like mules, and mules are super cool. They're really different than horses. You'd think they're not, and they're like, well, they're just kind of the same. They're very different. I can't really think of an animal I would not work with.
Just curious. Now, if somebody listening right now, again, if they want to work with you, they would just go to your website, PattyPetPsychic.com, I
Yep,
guess, right?
that's the best place.
Like an email address on there.
Yeah, you can fill out a little form and contact me that way. I'll be doing a bunch of events this summer.
And are those events going to be listed on the website too? That you'll
Eventually,
be, or a
yeah, it's kind
calendar,
of getting restructured, so they will be up there soon.
If someone wants to come to an event and have you do a reading, should they plan ahead anything or
Not
like, what
really.
should they-
Like I'm doing the Yappy Hours with the Salt Lake City, and they're one a month and at different parks. Bring your animal. It's first come, first serve. You know, if something comes up, shoot me an email, send me a picture.
And how long? I mean, obviously, I guess we saw the reading with Charles. Is that typical? Is that a typical reading? Or
No, that was a super short one.
That was a super short one. I was going to say that
Really?
was pretty fast. So
Yeah.
I mean, if you
Well, I want more.
if we had Charles here, you could have probably done even a bang up.
Sure.
job,
So-
right? I mean,
Phone readings are usually for a half hour. It depends. You know, if you have 2 or 3 animals, we'd probably go an hour. Home visits are about an hour and a half.
it would seem like home visits would be the way to go because you could really read the atmosphere.
Yeah, and if you have different animals, you know, we kind of do them all as a group.
Interesting.
Anything else you want to ask, Chrissy, before we let Patty go here? I've had a heck of a
Man,
conversation here.
I think I got my answers and then some. So just thank you for coming.
You bet.
Anything else you want to mention, Patty, or talk about before we completely let you go? And we still have the record button going here.
It's okay to love your animals,
Yeah.
and it's okay to help them live long and happy and healthy lives.
Love it. Seems like a good place to end the podcast.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Patty.
You bet.
Many thanks again to Patty Rayman for joining us on this episode of the podcast and sharing her story. Head on over to our website, iamsaltlake.com/335 for all the links and to get in touch with her and find out more about Patty.
Hey, before we leave you today, I want to tell you about our event calendar that we have up on our website. A lot of people don't even know about this awesome resource that we have on the website. We're trying to keep it full of all the events going on in Salt Lake City area, live concerts, art shows, networking events, foodie events, and all of the best parties around town. And you can access this calendar by going to imsaltlake.com/events. Check it out. And if there's something that you see that maybe needs to be submitted to the calendar, you can let us know as well.
And I know it's our website, but I still like to go there to look for events.
Hey, you got to keep up. There's so much stuff going on here in Salt Lake City. You got to keep up on it.
Totally. Well, many thanks again to our sponsors for this episode, Five Wives Vodka, Market Source Real Estate, and Blip Billboards. And thanks to Access Co-working Space for their hospitality. And most of all, many thanks to you guys, the listeners, for coming back episode after episode.
Hey, you have a great week. Make sure to get out and enjoy the city, support local, and we'll see you on the next episode.
And good night, Grammy.